Hey everybody, it's Lance with CinematicGalaxy here today, and I'm sorry about how long it's taken me to get these Pixar reviews out. Anyway guys, I'm here to review Pixar's 10th feature film, Up. Anyway, much like I did with WALL-E, Up was a film that I knew about a few years before it came out, because like I do now, I just kept up with all the film news and stuff back then, and it was just always a film. They released this concept art way back then that showed Carl Fredricksen, the main character, the old man. It showed him looking out of his house, out of the front door of his house, and basically he was in the sky and he was seeing like airplanes flying by and stuff. And that concept art just really intrigued me. It just, Up seemed like from the very beginning like something totally unlike anything Pixar had ever done before. And also just the fact that the elderly man was the main protagonist of this film, that was something that just really intrigued me by the start, from the very start, because you really don't see that too often at all. Up is directed by Pete Docter, who directed Monsters, Inc., which is one of my favorite Pixar films, and just one of my favorite films, period. Oh, and by the way, guys, if you haven't seen Up, there are going to be spoilers in this review. As with all the other reviews I've done for the Pixar film, Up is an absolutely fantastic movie. I love this movie so much. It really... It's just, the movie, I can't describe how it makes me feel, but it's one of those movies that really just transcends beyond being a movie. It's really an experience, to be honest with you. But that's how I feel about most of Pixar's films, their best films. It really takes you away and just brings you into this world and brings you into this universe. Alright, first of all, I'm just going to commend the obvious, the animation of this film, the design of this film. It just looks fantastic, it's beautiful. Just everything, the environments, Paradise Falls is breathtakingly gorgeous, beautiful to look at. Just everything, the skies, the clouds, the character animations are very unique, very stylized, but they work for this film. It just, everything about this film, it just has such a nice feeling to it, and the design of it, the animation just really adds to that. Also, the musical score by Michael Giacchino. He did The Incredibles and Ratatouille for Pixar. This is probably my favorite score out of all of those films. Maybe The Incredibles is up there, but this score is one of my favorite scores of all time. I mean, it just really takes you on every single emotional aspect of this film. The score is so good. I can really just hum the theme to Up, like anytime. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Yeah, I know I'm really cool. And I'm also going to say that the voice acting, as always with Pixar, is top notch. I mean, the Cars movies, it was good even for those. Like I mean, I don't love those movies, but the voice acting isn't really what my problem with any of those movies are. But the voice acting for this movie is outstanding. You know, all the voices fit the characters so well. But what really makes this movie, as always with any great movie and any great Pixar film, is the story and the characters. You know, they just completely go hand in hand here. The basic story of Up, we first see Carl Fredricksen when he's just a little boy, and he sees this movie, this documentary, Adventure is Out There or something. It stars Charles Muntz, his favorite explorer, way back in the 1930s. So kids didn't have video games or TV or stuff like that to keep them occupied, so they just went to the movies or went outside, they played around and stuff, and came up with their own little adventures and used their imaginations. And as he's going home from the movies, just pretending that he's Charles Muntz and just having his own little adventure, he comes across this old abandoned shack house or whatever, and he hears this little girl playing inside there. So he's curious, and he just decides to go and look. And he comes across this girl named Ellie, who is the very definition of a tomboy for that time. And she's basically having her own adventure. She's into the same types of things he is. And the bond that develops between the two of them is just so sweet, and just, it really just makes you feel great seeing how they meet each other and how they just connect. And Carl Fredricksen, he's a lot more shy and a lot more reserved. And Ellie's a lot more outgoing. And one of my favorite lines of the film is where she says, "You don't talk much." I like you. A few years down the road, Ellie and Carl fall in love and get married. And it's just, you don't see all the stuff in between, but all you really needed to see was just them connecting as kids, and you see that bond between them. And when you see them getting married, you buy it. I mean, I bought it, and it's basically just this whole montage. Probably the most famous scene in the entire film is this montage called Married Life, where we basically see them getting married and just going through the ups and downs of marriage. And there's no dialogue at all, just music playing over it and the animation, the scenes, and it's perfect. It's great filmmaking, and it's just so emotionally powerful. Every single moment you understand what's going on, and the music just completely tells you what's going on and how the characters are feeling. And at the end of the montage, as everybody knows, Ellie passes away. You know, that we see them older, and you feel, I mean, just a few minutes, just like 4 minutes long, no dialogue whatsoever, but you completely feel like you've grown up with Carl Fredricksen. You feel like you know him as a character. You know all you need to know, and you know that this was the love of his life. I mean, it's so heartbreaking, my gosh, and I'm surprised I really don't cry at it, but it always just hurts me so bad when she dies. So basically in the present day, Carl is kind of a grumpy old man. He's not enjoying his life. He just gets up every day alone. So that's the basic setup, but then we get introduced to more characters like Russell, and just after that, this whole big adventure takes off. You know, all this stuff happens. Eventually, Carl decides to go to Paradise Falls, which is where Ellie always wanted to go when she was alive, you know, ever since they were kids. Basically, he takes these balloons and makes his house float, and he's also escaping from the retirement home people as well. But yeah, I guess I've explained enough of the plot, but I just wanted to, I felt like for this story, I just kind of needed to give a little rundown, because the story of this film is just so deep and so emotional. Carl Fredricksen, my favorite character in this film, he is just an outstanding character, and I love the fact that he is an elderly man. That just really, you don't see that in movies very much at all, but you know, the fact that a movie like this that is really for all ages, but a lot of kids would be seeing it, they really took a big risk making an old man a hero and protagonist, but it really paid off here because the movie did fantastic at the box office. And it's amazing that even though he's a lot older than I am, I really connect with the character of Carl Fredricksen. You really understand why he is the way he is, and I think that's why it paid off so well that we were introduced to him when he was a kid, and then we see him grow older. That just really was a great creative decision right there. But yeah, his character is hilarious. He says some of the funniest stuff in this film. Just a lot of great kind of crotchety old man lines. And the guy has a big heart as well. Ed Asner is fantastic as the voice of him. And the animation, everything. He looks a lot like Spencer Tracy from way back in the classic movie era. And just a great character. One of my favorite movie characters of all time. And then we have Russell, who's a little Asian Boy Scout, which I love the choice of Pixar to include a different race like that into this film as a major character. That really made me happy. Some people say Russell is annoying, but I completely disagree there. I think he is incredibly believable as an 8-year-old boy. You know, I've had cousins that are 8 years old and stuff, and I mean, they act just like him. You know, the 8-year-old boys act just like Russell, and it's really uncanny. And you know, he's not one of those annoying little kids that's just walking around being obnoxious and trying to be cute. He's really just a believable boy, and I think that, if you think Russell is annoying, then I think you just find kids annoying in general. And Russell has this backstory that really just makes you care for the character and feel for the character. And Carl does as well. Carl really latches onto him, and there's this very grandfatherly grandson relationship that develops between the two of them throughout this journey. Then you have other characters like Charles Muntz, the villain of this film, who is one of my favorite Pixar villains. He just really, you might say he's kind of one-dimensional, but I wouldn't say that, you know, but he's a very just creepy, kind of different villain from what you usually get with Pixar. It's almost like if Walt Disney was evil or something, you know? And then you have the talking dog characters, who I just think are hilarious. Some people have a problem with them. I love them in the movie. And my favorite, of course, being Doug, who is my second favorite character in this film, Doug the dog. Doug just has some of the greatest lines in this film. He's very funny. And And then we have the bird Kevin, who really doesn't do anything but squawk and run around and stuff, but he looks like a rainbow. He's just this movie, the characters are so colorful and weird and zany, and that throws some people off, but I love it about this film. It really makes it feel like a classic, kind of like The Wizard of Oz, or like a Hayao Miyazaki film, if you're familiar with him and his work, like Spirited Away and stuff. This film really reminds me of those, and that is a really high compliment for me. I feel like you really have to be on board with this film from the very moment that the house is floating away with the balloons. I mean, I feel like if you're not on board then you just ought to turn the movie off, because you're gonna be nitpicking how it's not realistic and stuff like that. So if you can buy a house floating away with balloons, then I think you could buy dogs flying airplanes. I mean, I'm just saying. My favorite scene in this film, in terms of just everything from the emotion and everything, is the scene where Carl Fredricksen, where he has to let his house, his house isn't working, where the balloons have all deflated, and he is, after a bunch of things that happen, he's very down, and he just looks through the old photo book, and he basically sees, he turns past a page that he never turned by, and he sees that Ellie was extremely happy with the life she led with Carl. She felt like her life with him was her greatest adventure, and she tells him to have a new one, and it's just so emotionally touching and resonant. And the scene right after it, where Carl, he gets rid of all the stuff. He's basically letting go of all the emotional baggage and the memories that have been weighing him down. He's letting go of it all and just deciding to live life again and just be free. And it's so uplifting and so powerful. And that shot of the two chairs sitting side by side on Paradise Falls, I've cried at that scene like a baby. I mean, it gets me sometimes. It's really powerful, and it's my favorite scene in the film easily. So there you have it. I know I've rambled on a lot in this review. I'm going to try to keep it as short as I can, but I had a lot to say about this movie. Up is one of my favorite Pixar movies. I know I've said that about a lot of them, but I do have a lot of favorite Pixar movies. In terms of Pixar, I have the ones that are my favorites, the ones that are middle ground, and my least favorite ones, which are the Cars movies. But anyway, love Up, A+. It gets an A+ from me. So anyway, guys, let me know. How do you feel about Up? Do you love it as much as I do? Do you not love it so much? How do you feel about it? But anyway, guys, take care of yourselves. And this is Lance from Cinematic Galaxy signing off.